Picture this. You're at a routine checkup, your blood sugar is down, your inflammation markers have improved, and your doctor asks what changed. And you tell him? Nothing really. Just started drinking a cup of clove tea every morning. That's not a hypothetical. That's the kind of story showing up in the research on this drink. And it keeps pointing back to the same small, inexpensive, completely ordinary thing sitting in the spice aisle of your grocery store. Now, clove tea isn't new. In Indonesia, where the clove tree originates, people have been drinking it for centuries. In traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic practice, cloves have been used for digestion, immunity, and pain relief for thousands of years. This isn't a wellness trend someone invented last year. What is new is the science catching up to what those traditions already knew. And for anyone over 60 specifically, this is where it gets worth paying close attention to. Because the benefits researchers are finding map almost perfectly onto the exact things that get harder to manage as we age: blood sugar, bone strength, joint inflammation, brain health, immune function. A cup of hot water and 2 cloves, steeped for 10 minutes. That's it. And that's what we're getting into today. Something shifts after 60. Most people feel it before they can name it. The recovery time after a bad night's sleep gets longer. The joints that were fine yesterday are stiff this morning for no obvious reason. The blood sugar that was easy to manage in your 50s starts being less predictable. These things don't happen because of one cause. They happen because several systems in the body, systems that used to regulate themselves quietly, start needing more support. And this is exactly the window where clove tea becomes relevant, not as a cure, as consistent daily support for the systems that are working harder than they used to. So what's actually in the cup? The main compound is eugenol, the same one that gives cloves their distinct aroma. It's a natural antioxidant, an anti-inflammatory, an antimicrobial, and it's unusually potent. Research has found that eugenol stops free radical damage to cells 5 times more effectively than vitamin E, one of the most well-known antioxidants in the world. Why does that matter after 60? Because oxidative stress, the damage caused by free radicals accumulating faster than the body can neutralize them, accelerates with age. It's one of the primary mechanisms behind cellular aging itself: the joints that ache, the tissue that breaks down more slowly, the cognitive fog that creeps in. Oxidative stress is threaded through all of it. But eugenol isn't working alone. Cloves are one of the richest dietary sources of manganese available to us. 1 teaspoon of ground cloves delivers around 55% of your daily recommended manganese intake. That might not sound exciting, but manganese is essential for bone formation, for brain function, and for the enzymes your body uses to process energy. After 60, when bone density is already declining and the risk of fracture is climbing, that mineral contribution in a daily cup becomes genuinely meaningful. And then there's the anti-inflammatory side. Eugenol works by blocking an enzyme called COX-2, the same pathway targeted by common pain medications like ibuprofen. Not at the same dose, not with the same speed, but consistently, quietly, every morning, putting gentle pressure on the inflammatory processes that drive joint pain, cardiovascular risk, and metabolic instability. 1 cup, multiple systems, all of them the ones that need the most attention after 60. That's why this isn't just a nice warm drink. It's a particularly well-timed one. Digestion. This one surprises people because it's not what cloves are famous for in the Western world. But in Ayurvedic medicine, cloves have been used for digestive discomfort for centuries, and modern research is explaining why. Eugenol stimulates the production of digestive enzymes. It also increases the protective mucus lining of the stomach, which matters because that lining thins with age. Bloating after meals, that sluggish, heavy feeling, food that just seems to sit there, these become more common after 60. A warm cup of clove tea before or after eating gives the digestive system a gentle nudge in the right direction. And this is where things start to click, because when digestion improves, nutrient absorption improves with it. The manganese we talked about, the antioxidants, they only do their job if the body is actually absorbing them properly. Clove tea supports the very system that makes everything else more effective. Blood sugar. We have actual human data on this one. A study run out of the USDA found that participants taking the equivalent of 1 to 2 cloves daily for 30 days saw their blood sugar drop significantly, alongside improvements in LDL cholesterol and triglycerides. That research was done on people with type 2 diabetes, but a separate 2019 study found similar effects in healthy volunteers and those with prediabetes. Eugenol appears to help cells take up glucose from the bloodstream more efficiently, working in a similar direction to insulin. For someone over 60 managing their metabolic health, that's not a small thing. Blood sugar instability after meals is one of the quieter contributors to fatigue, brain fog, and weight that won't shift. And clove tea is applying consistent, gentle pressure on exactly that problem. Joint inflammation, the COX-2 mechanism we talked about. Let's make it concrete. The morning stiffness that takes an hour to work itself out, that's inflammation that's been building overnight. Eugenol doesn't eliminate that. Nothing dietary eliminates it overnight. What it does is reduce the volume on the inflammatory signaling that's driving it. People who drink clove tea consistently report that the stiffness is less. Not gone, less. That's a meaningful distinction, and it tracks with what the anti-inflammatory research on eugenol would predict: oral health. And this one has unusually solid science behind it. Eugenol has been used in dentistry for over 100 years. It's an FDA-approved ingredient in dental products, including temporary fillings and root canal sealers. Research out of King Saud University confirmed clove extract effectively suppresses the bacteria responsible for tooth decay. And a separate study found that a clove-based gel was as effective as benzocaine for numbing gum tissue before a dental procedure. Why does this matter specifically for seniors? Because gum disease becomes more prevalent with age. And the research linking gum disease to systemic inflammation, cardiovascular risk, and blood sugar dysregulation is substantial. The mouth is not a separate system. What happens there circulates through the rest of you. A daily cup of clove tea creates an antimicrobial environment in the mouth that brushing alone doesn't fully address. That's 4 distinct benefits: digestion, blood sugar, joint inflammation, and oral health from the same 10-minute steep. Now here's what's interesting, and this is the part of the clove tea research that genuinely stopped me when I came across it. Brain and cognitive protection. There's an enzyme in the brain called acetylcholinesterase. Its job is to break down acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for memory, learning, and attention. In a healthy brain, that breakdown happens at the right pace. In a brain affected by Alzheimer's disease, too much acetylcholine gets destroyed too quickly. The communication between neurons breaks down. Memory goes with it. The drugs used to treat Alzheimer's, donepezil, galantamine, rivastigmine, work by inhibiting acetylcholinesterase, slowing that breakdown down, preserving more acetylcholine in the brain. And here's where it connects to your morning cup. A 2025 review confirmed that clove extract inhibits acetylcholinesterase through the same mechanism, the same enzyme, the same pathway. Eugenol also appears to inhibit the formation of the protein deposits that accumulate in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Let me be clear about what this means and what it doesn't. This is not a claim that drinking clove tea prevents Alzheimer's. The human clinical evidence for that is not there yet. This is early-stage research. What it is saying is that eugenol is operating on the precise biological targets that researchers identify as central to the disease. And it's doing it gently at dietary levels with no side effects. For anyone over 60 thinking about protecting their cognitive health, which is most people over 60, that is genuinely worth knowing. Bone health. This one connects back to the manganese we covered earlier. After 60, bone density loss accelerates, particularly for women after menopause. The risk of fracture from a fall that would have been minor at 40 becomes a serious medical event at 70. 1 teaspoon of ground cloves delivers 55% of the daily recommended manganese intake, and manganese is directly involved in building and maintaining bone density. Beyond the mineral content, an animal study found that clove extract high in eugenol improved multiple markers of osteoporosis and increased bone density and strength. Human trials are still needed to confirm the same effect, so I won't overstate it. But the direction the research is pointing, combined with the manganese contribution, makes bone support a legitimate reason to be drinking this daily. Liver health. The liver works harder with age. It metabolizes medications, filters toxins, and regulates cholesterol. And by the time someone is in their 60s or 70s, they're often on multiple medications that add to that load. Animal studies have found that eugenol reduces oxidative stress in the liver, improves function in cases of fatty liver disease, and decreases inflammation in liver tissue. One small human study found that a week of eugenol supplementation lowered a specific liver enzyme associated with disease markers. The research is still mostly preclinical, but for an organ that quietly does more work than most people realize, adding a compound with demonstrated liver protective properties to the daily routine is, at minimum, not a bad idea. Immune function. The antimicrobial side of eugenol extends well beyond the mouth. Cloves have demonstrated effectiveness against a range of bacteria, fungi, and viruses in laboratory settings, including several strains of Candida that are resistant to conventional antifungal medication. After 60, immune response slows. Recovery from illness takes longer. The body is less efficient at identifying and neutralizing threats before they take hold. Drinking clove tea daily isn't going to replace an immune system, but introducing a consistent antimicrobial and antioxidant compound into the system every morning is doing something. It's reducing the burden the immune system has to manage. That matters when the system's resources are already stretched thinner than they used to be. That's 4 more reasons: brain protection, bone support, liver health, and immune function, layered on top of everything we covered before. Respiratory health. Cloves have natural expectorant properties, meaning they help loosen and clear congestion in the airways. The warm steam from a cup of clove tea alone can open nasal passages. After 60, the lungs are less efficient at clearing irritants, and respiratory infections hit harder and linger longer. A morning cup that's simultaneously warming the airway and delivering antimicrobial compounds to the throat and sinus environment is doing quiet, practical work for a system that quietly struggles more than it used to. Sleep and nervous system. This one surprises people. Eugenol appears to have mild sedative properties. It interacts with the brain's calming receptors, the same ones involved in reducing anxiety and easing the nervous system towards sleep. Not at the level of a medication, but gently enough that many people who drink clove tea in the evening report sleeping more soundly. For older adults dealing with lighter, more fragmented sleep, which is nearly everyone over 65, that gentle support is worth something. Cardiovascular support. The same LDL reduction seen in the USDA diabetes study points to something broader. Eugenol appears to interfere with the oxidation of LDL cholesterol, and it's LDL oxidation, not LDL itself, that triggers the inflammatory cascade leading to arterial plaque. Keeping LDL from oxidizing is a meaningful upstream intervention for heart health, which, after 60, is everyone's business: cellular aging. And then there's the antioxidant load itself, which we touched on earlier but which deserves its own moment here. Eugenol stops oxidative damage to cells 5 times more effectively than vitamin E. Every cup delivers that antioxidant signal to a body that needs more help neutralizing the cellular damage that accumulates with age. Slower cellular aging means tissue that holds up better, skin that stays more resilient, organs that function closer to their capacity for longer, systems that don't give out before they have to. The ritual. And I want to name this one because it's easy to overlook. There's something about having a deliberate, quiet practice at the start of the day, something that's yours, something warm, something that connects you to your own health in a small and consistent way that matters beyond the chemistry. The people who tend to make lasting changes to their health are rarely the ones who overhaul everything at once. They're the ones who build one small, consistent habit and let it anchor everything else. 10 minutes, 2 cloves, every morning. Now I want to stop here for a moment because this is the part I actually want you to think about. Most people don't change their health habits until something forces them to. A diagnosis. A number that comes back wrong. A morning they can't get out of bed without real effort. And by then, they've lost years. Years where the inflammation was quietly building, where the blood sugar was slowly becoming harder to manage, where the brain wasn't getting the compounds it needed to stay sharp. I've seen what that looks like on the other end. Someone in their mid-70s who can no longer drive themselves to appointments, not because of one event, but because the cognitive sharpness just eroded gradually and nobody caught it. Someone who stopped traveling because the joints hurt too much to walk a terminal. Someone who used to cook every night for their family, a real point of pride, and now can't stand long enough to finish a meal. Not from a single diagnosis, from years of accumulated damage that wasn't being addressed. It doesn't have to go that way. You're watching this now, which means you still have the window. The time where small, consistent choices compound into something significant. A year from now, 5 years from now, the gap between someone who did this daily and someone who didn't is real. It shows up in how they move, how they think, how they feel getting out of bed in the morning. That's what you're really choosing when you choose this. Not a cup of tea, a direction. And it costs a few dollars for a jar of whole cloves. That's the whole barrier. Start tomorrow morning. 2 cloves in hot water, 10 minutes, drink it warm. Do it again the next day, and the day after that. If this video was useful to you, subscribe. There's a lot more of this kind of research coming, and I'd love to have you here for it. Take care of yourself.